All right, we're gonna get started so you have a chance to, like, again, it's not, I don't want to be the one talking so much as they are. So I want you to meet another round of students. They're going to be talking to you about blended learning. So our teachers are in partnership with the CAST network and their support. Our teachers have been exploring how to use blended learning in the classroom successfully. And so they're part of a group that has been engaged in that work. And I don't know if Jen wants to tell us more.
Sure.
I'm calling out her on the spot.
We kind of approach the way we help teachers hone their craft differently. We don't really do traditional professional development,
right.
But we will ask teachers what are sometimes your opportunities for growth or your pain points, and then we'll run a NIC or we'll use the improvement science model of plan, study, act, and do. And we will go through that iteration and we'll come together and we'll ask. And so one of the things that teachers identified is when students transition out of a traditional school into a CAST school, they struggle with owning their agency. And so that was a problem that teachers identified and said, how could we get to a place where we can unlock for our students and maybe even do some unlearning around freedom and choice and independence and making autonomous decisions. And we decided to use blended learning as a mechanism for improving that. And so our tutors engaged in year-long cohorts to identify how they might use a blended learning strategy to unlock student agency.
Okay, so well better said than I could ever. So, as you can see, I mean, the building facilitates that too, right? Like, that's the idea. Like, there should be lots of flexibility. There should be movement. We should be seeing kids, lounging in the common areas in the morning before school starts, but also you should get to class, right? I mean, they've got to learn how to use that agency and freedom. It's not about saying you're not mature enough to use the agency and freedom, but how do you act as an autonomous actor in this building in a really respectful way, and still stay true to the learning environment, still make sure that you're learning and doing all those things. And I'll tell you, we've been pretty successful. Like, the space has been pretty clean and people are responsible for it. And I was telling one group, if someone uses the microwave and they make a mess, they call each other out, hold each other accountable. There are lots of spaces where you would think, misbehavior could happen. And misbehavior happens, but we learn from it. And for the most part, they've been doing a really great job with the space. So I'm super proud of them. I think it's because we just assume they will do a good job. We put in place some parameters for them, but the same thing in the classroom. When we give them freedom and choice, sometimes they go, oh, you gave me freedom and choice, what do I do? Right? We're not used to that. And so trying to train them and get them ready for that. So you have Haley Gallibert, I'm gonna say it wrong, because I'm on the spot. Is one of our English teachers and one of our inaugural teachers, so she's been with us since the onset, and she's been in this cohort, and probably, I would argue, one of our most successful blended learning teachers. It's okay, love. They usually have class in here, so they're coming to knock. And then you have Erin Garcia. You can say hi.
Hi.
Erin's a freshman. Actually, all of these students, none of you have been on a panel, right? No, this is their first time. So Erin Garcia is a freshman with us. Erin's mom actually works here, Lori, as one of our teachers. She's an inclusion teacher. She does co-teach with us in English, and then we'll be doing English and social studies next year. Mercedes Reyes is a sophomore with us. Hi. This is Jimena Gonzalez. And this is Caleb Ned. He's a freshman with us. Some of you were on the tour with him. I will say that they're all involved in the school in very different ways, just because some of you were asking. So Mercedes plays soccer at Stevens, varsity soccer at Stevens, right? And Jimena's in JROTC, and Caleb plays football. Everybody kind of has their own niche, but it's a good way to keep the community partnered together. So I think that's important. Our other individual up here is Barbara Bloomingdale. She's our instructional facilitator, and so we use special funds to pay for this really unique position. It doesn't exist in Northside anywhere else, and she really is the connection between the students and the teachers. Like, when I need to intervene with a student, can I pull them out and work with them one-on-one? When I need to get into a classroom, can I get in and support? Can I help them get some of these major projects done? So she's like 50-50 support for teachers and students. She also was part of the blended learning process, so that's why she's here today. And then last, you have Anastasia. She is here from the CAST network and is going to be the moderator for this panel. There you go. I did it. I'm done.
My name is Anastasia Perez. I work with the CAST network. I'm the Educator Engagement Coordinator, and I'll be moderating our session today. The first question is more for our instructors. Can you elaborate on how implementing blended learning strategies has influenced your teaching approach and lesson planning?
So honestly, at the very beginning, it's hard to let go, right? And especially being a freshman teacher, you need to give them enough support to set them up for the rest of high school. But also with our model, I need to let go enough to set you up for the rest of high school, right? And so that was kind of the way that I had to shift a little bit. And I feel like I generally had a relatively free working classroom to begin with. But, there's other things that you have to think about, like testing and stuff like that, being an EOC teacher. And so it was really like I had to find the middle ground between, we still have these things that we need to do because we teach in Texas. But also, like, I know that the work that we're doing in the classroom is a lot more, I hope, than teaching in Texas and like taking a test at the end. And so it required like a kind of a mental pivot, a shift, because, I want to encourage them to take ownership and what do you like to learn about and what do you want to write about and how long do you think this needs to be to like demonstrate your TEK, because there's no TEK that says you need to write 5 paragraphs, the TEK says you need to develop it well, right? So then I think like once I let go, my lesson planning honestly became a lot easier because I could kind of like, this is what maybe I want to do, but then the kids will ultimately tell me like what they need to do, and if we have a really great conversation, that can be a lot more productive than some of the other stuff that maybe we do, So it kind of like became more flexible, and lesson planning became a lot less of a chore because I got to lean on them to kind of tell me how, in some cases, like how much we need to do, or do we need to have a discussion, do we need to stop and look at this a little bit more. So it was like kind of looser, I guess, is what I would say.
Barbara, do you want to add anything? Or?
I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot, the teachers in the cohort, is that when it comes to blended learning, you want to pace yourself. So you don't want to feel like every day in the classroom has to be some kind of blended lesson. So if you do one a month, if you do a couple in a grading period, if you do, right, then giving kids a taste of that is okay. It doesn't have to be something you do constantly. Because, realistically, every teacher is on that spectrum, right? Everyone is developing at their own pace and at their own skill level. So, like Ms. Gelibert is really advanced technology, and ed tech is really like part of her wheelhouse. She's really good at that. So some other teachers in our cohort were just starting out and had never tried something like that before. So you want to pace yourself and go at the rate where you feel you're comfortable and you can do it well. Mr. Ortiz and I collaborated on a lesson about World War I trench warfare. And so we set up some station rotations for kids, but it did take a while for us to set that up together, and then maybe a day or two in the classroom with kids. So you want to remember that it takes a little bit of time to build those lessons and those different components, and then kind of pace yourself into it so you don't feel like you're pressuring yourself to do blended learning 24/7. I know Catlin Tucker, the big blended learning guru, also would echo that and say it's really about getting some quality in and not just quantity.
This is for our students. Blended learning offers a lot of independence, freedom, and choice. Was that a shift for you in your school experience? And what has it been like to make that shift?
I think from my experience when I was in middle school, I didn't have any pretty much at all independence or freedom the way we have it here, and so that switch coming into CAST and then them being like, you have all this space, and I'm like, no. Like, and
To do what?
I do. But I think adjusting, it really helped, just like thinking I don't have to like be stuck in this classroom, even just like in class time, if we're just doing work or something, be like, can we go to like these collabs areas, and then we just like, we get to spread out and just, it's not like sitting down at a desk all day, and I think that's really helping our like our independence and just like going off of that, and then having like how she's been saying, our freedom, how we like hold each other accountable, making sure our space is clean, and just like I think that's helping us with our future and stuff.
For me, it was a big culture shock going from middle school and having everything set, rubric, you have to do it exactly this way, and then coming into CAST and having so much more freedom, so many less rules. The PBL project we did was definitely a big thing for me. It was my first big project that I'd ever done that was completely, you do it on your time. This is your deadline. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You just have to do it. And that to me was really fun. I had a really good time doing that because I was always set to, okay, we're doing this in class today, we're doing that in class tomorrow. And the whole thing was, okay, hi, get to work. So for me, I experienced a lot more freedom here than I did in middle school. There's a lot more creativity to be had when you don't have such rigid set rules.
Anybody else want to add?
I think for me, it really just allows me to manage my time, like having to know, like line it out, make sure that I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and then be able to go and do it by myself, and or just like be thrown into it and learn what I need to do.
And then from middle school, the teachers would just like throw us into groups and not really tell us anything, and like don't talk or anything. Yeah. And when I came here, all the teachers were like very welcoming and like made us feel comfortable, and like we could go out in the collab areas and talk and make us feel like good about ourselves, that we could experience more. So I feel like that was a big thing that makes us learn productively.
That's another thing. It's just like they kind of like our freshman teachers, they're all like every single one of them just made us feel welcome and safe where we were, and I think it made CAST like a little like family community, and like you'll see like if you've been walking around during the passing periods, everybody knows each other. Everybody, like, even if we don't like each other, there's just always like, because I mean it's gonna happen, but it's just like it's never just like I don't know, it's always just mutual with everybody. There's no like forced like just it's all just like it's just
the connection.
Yeah, it's just a connection we all have. I think that's really helping.
Okay, this is again more for our instructors. Reflecting on your experience designing blended experience, what adjustments or innovations have you had to make in response to student feedback or observed challenges?
So one thing, this is an experience that I remember like now fondly with Erin. When we started writing and using the blended learning model to support our writing, Erin looked at me and they said, I can write about anything? And I said yes. And Erin was like, are you going to tell me that I have to like cut it off at a certain point? And I said no. And well, but like how? And so what I started doing was offering options for support. And so if a student like Erin needed a graphic organizer, here's that option for you. If you don't want it, don't use it. Like, pick what you need from the development process. And you know, so we're incorporating, not every lesson is a blended learning lesson, but there are blended learning strategies, right? And then freedom is one of those strategies. And so that's the biggest thing that I think we've incorporated is like the choice in not only like your product, but how you come up with your product as well. Even in, you know, we started doing playlists for like test prep. And so I stopped saying, we're all gonna do this test prep together. And I gave them, you know, maybe 8 or 9 different options based on the TEK, and like, go prep what you feel like you need to prep because you know you're learning best. And so that was, you know, the feedback was, I don't know what I'm doing. And so then I just, you know, kind of differentiated the supports to get there using the strategies. So not, like I said, not every lesson is the blending learning lesson, but I was able to incorporate those strategies in almost every day, because once you like figure out like that's what this is, it's easy to incorporate it. So the support was kind of how we got there.
Yeah, I think it takes, when you create blended learning based lessons, I think it takes you back to that essential piece of what are my kids going to want to dig into? What's going to spark their curiosity and their thinking, right? So, and I'll go back to the trench warfare example for a minute. So we had to think about a couple of pieces, right? We wanted to give kids options about how they enter into the learning. So I have to think about what the different options are, and then how do we explore that? And then we also had to think about finding content that's going to make it really interesting and fascinating for kids, right? Social studies, my friend Tori Marquez likes to call it dates and dead people. And she said, how do we make dates and dead people interesting to kids? So we found photographs from the trenches and photographs of bombs and soldiers' uniforms and all kinds of interesting things, and ask kids to really look at those closely and then to draw some conclusions. We also had some movie depictions of trench warfare, and then contrast that with some actual documentary footage that's going to tell you what the real version was. And then we also had some reading selections. And so we asked kids to choose the ones that they wanted to try. You don't have to do all of them. If you're more of an audio or a visual learner, you can go here. If you want to read it, you can go here. If you want to listen to it, you can go here. So I think it forces us to shift back to what are kids going to find interesting, what's going to spark their curiosity, and then what's going to meet different learning styles. We were having this great conversation about it right before we came out, and the kids were saying, you know, some of my teachers at first it was just, I'm going to do the notes and you're going to watch me and everybody copy it and everybody do it together. And now it's turned into, I'm going to do the notes. If you want to follow along, I'm here. If you learn better from just going over the slides on your own, you can do that here. If you want to watch the video, you can do that here, and then we'll come back together. So those different pieces, and which again goes back to what I said earlier, it takes some time to build those, right? One of our math teachers, Miss Wynn, she's fantastic at that. She makes videos, and then she posts her videos on her own YouTube channel so that the kids can go back and see them. And then she also just takes pictures of the anchor charts for the day, and she posts those on social media. So kids will come to me for tutoring, they'll come to her for tutoring, and I'll say, are you following her? Okay, we're gonna like and follow Win Algebra right now. Let's get on, right? And then as we're doing the lesson, I'll say, okay, pull up Instagram, let's find that one. I'm not a math person, so I can't do that with you, but let's figure it out. Okay, remember this? Yeah, okay, let's do it together now. So lots of different pieces to spark kids' curiosity, and then lots of different ways that they can enter into the learning. I think that's my big takeaway.
Now what are you guys doing in Miss Wynn's class? Those of you in Wynn. Now she's not making the videos and anchor charts. What's happening?
We're making them.
So now the students are making the videos and the anchor charts.
For our final this year, she gave us the option between taking a traditional test or teaching math to our classes.
Yep.
We get to choose the math level, so I'm doing elementary. But I'd rather do that than take a test.
Yeah, and our geometry teacher is out on maternity leave right now. And so we're working with the sub and trying to help the geometry kids. And I said to them, okay, look, we have a test over circles. It's time to do a little Miss Wynn strategy. So you can either make a Miss Wynn anchor chart or you can make a video. And everyone said, okay, I got this. And now I'm going to make my anchor chart, and now I'm going to teach the lesson. And we took the review sheet, and everyone said, which problems do you feel confident about? Okay, that's the one that you're going to teach to the class, and ideally we've covered the entire review so that everyone gets a taste of what the learning was, right? And then came in, taught the little concept to everybody. Let me show you how to do this problem. We even took her strategy. So Miss Wynn does the problem in black, and then she color codes and labels the steps. So the next step is in red, and this is why you do it that way. The next step is in blue, here's why you do it that way. Next step is in green, and etc. So the kids had to figure that out too. Like, what's the hint that I can give you so you can solve the problem, and then you can do it on your own? And they color coded it, and they labeled all the hints and the steps. And then we put those on the wall. So the day of the test, okay, I'm looking at this one, that's right, I'm going to, got it, right? Because we want the kids to be the ones leading those conversations.
The videos are great to watch. As a parent, I also have a teenager who's here at school, and so when he's in class and I'm stuck with math, then we just go back to this.
Yeah, that's
And it's fun to watch my students doing the videos. I'm like, oh, hey, that's so-and-so's voice. I know who that is. Video, right?
I think my favorite one is one of our girls started out her video and she said, hi, we're going to be looking at blah, blah. And I know math is hard and it can stress you out sometimes, so let's look at Jerry. He's our emotional support animal. And she draws him and she labels, and everyone say, hi, Jerry. Jerry's going to help us through the lesson today. And then Jerry pops up in all of her other videos too. It's adorable. I have a little post-it of Jerry on my computer just to help me through the day.
We use a similar strategy in English where, so after they take a test, I'll do some data analysis and I'll figure out the 5, most missed TEKS, the 5 most missed questions. And say out of those 5, every student has gotten one of those 5 questions right. So every student is a master of one of those questions that they've demonstrated throughout the test. And so what we'll do is we'll go into groups. So everybody in this group was a master at question 1. Everybody in this group is a master at question 12. And they'll come together and talk about how they're going to teach it to somebody that doesn't understand what they're doing. And so then they'll split up and they'll go into a new group, and there's one person from each question. So there's one master of each of the 5 questions in that group, and they teach each other. And that's one of the great things about, kind of structuring the classroom that way, is that sometimes I'm just not going to say it in a way that clicks for you, and sometimes Erin's going to say it in the way that clicks for you. And so if you hear it from me and you hear it from Erin, it's going to feel different, and then you're also like building the confidence of the student as well, because like I said, every student is a master of one of these questions, so every student gets to feel like they're the one that knows what they're doing, because they are. And so that's kind of the strategy that we've taken as far as like test corrections. We're not doing like the traditional test corrections. You're going to go and you're going to teach somebody, and then you're going to come back and we're going to reflect on what you learned from your classmates and those strategies that you picked up from them.
I was just going to say, we're approaching the end of our time, so if we have questions from the audience, yes.
I'm curious to know, when students enter into CAST in 9th grade, are there entry-level assessments that they take to determine what placement they would be in, or they just all are like English 1, Algebra 1, whatever it may be?
So so for Texas, everyone's going to go to English 1,
Okay.
because it's basically 9th grade English, right? For math, it depends on what they took in middle school. So they might have taken 7th grade math, they might have taken pre-algebra, they might have taken algebra 1. So it's leveled according to that placement. But for the most part, biology is another 9th grade course. So those classes are pretty set. Everyone for us in 9th grade is going to take Principles of Education, because that's their entry-level family consumer science class that aligns with our program. And then as far as their electives, that's kind of their choice, right? But for the most part, even if students want to be in an advanced, or what we used to call pre-AP class, that's really their choice. That's their choice. That's up to them and to their parents. If they need to change that level and go to an on-level class, that's a conversation we have at the beginning of the school year. But for the most part, we don't have any entry requirements or an entry-level assessment.
And the same is true in reverse. If I'm in an on-level class and the teacher and the student are realizing that this isn't challenging enough for me, they can always level up.
That's great.
I think one of the good things about leveling up and leveling down too is it's required that it's a collaborative decision. So it's a decision between the student, the parent, and the teacher. And I think that, you know, is another kind of point where we can work on some confidence, because I think that some students don't take those classes because it's not marketed to that type of student, right? And so if you have a student that says, I'm gonna level down because I can't do this, we can really dig into, well, why do you think you can't do this? And it's because, is it because we're having a skill gap, or is it because we're not confident in something? Like, what is it that we can work together to make you feel like you can do this because you can do it? And so it's kind of that conversation between the teacher, the student, and the parent to kind of like help that student figure out, like, what is it that's making you feel like you can't be in this advanced class?
So Day, who you met earlier, Daquan, mentioned Miss Gallagher earlier. This is who he was talking about. Like, she's the one who was like, hey, you really should be in this program, right? Like, that we do that a lot. Like, hey, you're in an on-level class. You should really be in an advanced class. Or, hey, we see you. We recognize some great potential in you. You really need to try this. So sometimes it's just, it really is building their confidence and their parents. Yes. I got the no
All right, if there's no more questions, I think we'll wrap up this panel. Anybody else?
I do want the students to share something. I do want them to share what their PDL projects were. Because this is a place where blended learning like exists. Right? Like we're doing all the things. Some are using technology solely, some are not, some are using bits and pieces. I mean, this is like where choice and voice exists. So I do want them to share what their topics were this year, just so you get an idea of the variety of choices that they were.
Kayla, can I start?
Mine was eliminating homework. We were early.
As if we get homework.
And why? Tell me the why, Kayla.
Just because we wanted kids to be able to do other things and have more free time to practice other skills and stuff that they're doing outside of school.
Mine was about period products, where since like it happens regular, like we don't want to have to pay for it because, you know, we can't help it, and some of us don't really have the money. And in the restrooms, you know, there's some right there, but like some of us have heavy flow, or like, you know, it's just like not enough for us, and we still have to pay for it, and there's not really enough supplies for us.
That's actually a really popular high school topic.
Yeah.
Like that accessibility, the number of absences that occur because female students get to class or leave the day because they don't have access to the products they need.
And that's a topic I've heard at some of our other high schools as
Yeah.
well, so it is a very popular topic.
Yeah.
Mine was adding more high school classes into the middle schools, so that way they can start like faster. Because for me, I started 9th grade with algebra 2 because I took algebra 1, and so we just focus on like that math part, scooting it back a little more, so that way when we come, majority of the kids come in starting algebra 2 or even geometry, and that way they just have, by their junior or senior year, they have more time to take those college classes or those like extra advanced classes, or maybe just like something so they can find out what they want to do in the future, because maybe they don't have CAS, but maybe they want to take like forensic science or psychology or something like that, and so that way they have room in their schedule.
For me, my PBL topic was on flexible seating, because if you're going to be in a classroom all day, we want kids to be comfortable in how they're seated. So one of our big topics was about students that are left-handed and students that are plus-sized. So in CAST, we're very fortunate to have tables and chairs like this. That was one of my favorite things being here. For our English EOC, we had to take we had to be in a Stevens room with the Stevens desk, and it was horrible. I had forgotten how bad they were, so that sucked.
It was a big inconvenience.
It was an inconvenience. I just sit at a desk. I sit at a desk.
How dare you?
I mean, again, it's the truth. If you went on the tour with Caleb and Max, they're freshmen and sophomores. They're still growing. They're big guys, and they have to sit in the desk connected to the chair. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough to sit in that for hours on end.
I just feel as though, like, if you're stuck in a chair, you should be comfortable.
Yes.
If you're going to be in a desk, you have to be comfortable.
Yes.
see all the nods. Your peers are like, yes. All right, thank you everybody for speaking with us today.
Yeah.